We have many distinguished people in our audience here at the India Today Conclave, including the former Chief of the Indian Army Staff, General Naravne. General Naravne, can I get you to intervene on whether you think that Michael Pillsbury is right when he thinks China is winning, that the United States will no longer post the mid-30s, be the world's #1 power, and where do you, as the man who's guarded India for so long, think India stands relative to the dragon across the Himalayas? It's working, sir.
I would like to put a question to Mr. Pillsbury. You have made a very compelling case with respect to China and where they stand vis-a-vis the US. And in that context, do you think that the US is unnecessarily getting embroiled in Europe and Ukraine, and in the bargain only playing into the hands of China?
Yes, I do. I think our focus should be the Indo-Pacific. It should not be Europe. There are too many warnings being given to both India and America that we can't just ignore what's happening. I myself think it was a mistake that our country aided China so much for 40 years and neglected India, or even worse, was even anti-India. That is slowly beginning to change. And I think cooperation between the United States and India is something that China fears will derail their 100-year marathon. They're very concerned about the Japan-India bilateral relationship, that this is beginning to involve security issues, military exercises. So China is not overly confident that they're going to win the 100-year marathon. And if Indian-American cooperation can grow over the next 10 years, if our support for Indian science, Indian technology, the Indian space program, frankly, getting India involved in arms control negotiations with China, right now China has no cap on their forces. And if they're going to break the Russian-American 1,500 nuclear warheads limit, it affects India too. So the possibility of slowing China's winning the 100-year marathon or making it never happen, if our growth and India's growth is above China's, they will never win the 100-year marathon. So in a way, it's in our hands, even though you and I are out of power right now, it's in our hands to slow down or even stop the 100-year marathon. But whether this will happen or not depends a lot on the cricket analogy. Can people tell that there's a game going on, that the umpire is calling things in the wrong way, and the score is looking bad? So far, nobody pays much attention to the global balance of power involving China, India, and America.
For a man who comes from a country obsessed with baseball, you picked up some cricketing metaphors very quickly, nicely done. You're going to be meeting India's Foreign Affairs Minister tomorrow, from what I gather. If you were advising the Indian government at this moment, given what you've seen of how China operates, what do you think New Delhi needs to do between now and the next 10 years to increase its national comprehensive power to be a more robust competitor to Beijing?
Well, first of all, Americans never should give advice to Indian cabinet ministers, but there is something we can learn from China. The Chinese communists had been in a war with America. There's various estimates, up to 1 million people killed on the Chinese side and the North Korean side, 20 years of hostility. But when the Chinese decided about the 100-year marathon, which is roughly 1978, 1979, they were ruthless for the next 30 years in bringing foreign investment into China. They hated the foreigners before this. But now when the Communist Party gave orders, if you and I wanted to build a cell phone factory in China, they would bring the infrastructure to us for free. Tax break, 10 years for free. All kinds of flattery. They did this across every technology sector they wanted China to grow in. It succeeded. Notice the way India treats foreign investors up until recently. Not very friendly. Mob scenes in front of McDonald's and Kentucky Fried Chicken. This is foreign stuff, you know, it shouldn't be here. The Chinese very quickly opened 1,000 Kentucky Fried Chicken stores. They opened several thousand McDonald's, Starbucks all over China. It's a miracle that the Chinese Communist Party was able to turn on a dime. Okay, the foreigners were all bad and evil before, now we welcome foreign investment in the extreme. That worked beautifully for them. I'd love to see that happen in India as well.
Okay, so we're out of time. I could go on and on because that's how fascinating and devious everything to do with Beijing is at the same time. And very few people are as clear-eyed about China as Michael Pillsbury is. Manoj, Kewalramani, thank you very much for joining us. Thanks also, Mr. Pillsbury. You'll be around, so if you have any more questions on China, feel free to walk up to Mr. Pillsbury during lunch or any of the breaks. Thank you very much.